Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on improving decision-making, visualization, and efficiency with Zerion Reports and Documents. I'll be your host today, and my name is Berit Johannesson, and your presenter is Jonathan Su. Now, the next thing we like to go into is just a few announcements. So in here, we have a power user recap. So we just had our power user this last couple, or I guess almost a month ago, a little less. And with that, we had a great experience where we were able to go in and learn what customers were doing with the platform, as well as share some of the new updates that we have internally. What we'll be doing in the next couple of weeks is we'll actually be posting those recordings and those videos. So those of you who couldn't attend, you'll still be able to benefit from the presentations that we saw and have access to those. Another important update that we have is that we have moved. So we have moved only across the street, but our address has changed. So if you're worried about billing or any questions about our address, I'm happy to send you our new address and get that all squared away. Now, for the remainder of the year, we do not have any more iFormBuilder certification sessions or data flow automation certifications. Those will start up again in 2018, but for the time being, we have webinars to support you. So we have 3 upcoming webinars, 2 of them being in October and 1 being in November. The next one is on the 10th, and this is the 3 forms every company should be using. So in this session, John's going to jump into some basic forms, or maybe not so basic, but they are 3 specific forms that almost every company already uses, but usually they have them as paper forms. So he's going to help your company take those paper forms and bring them into mobile. And then on October 25th, he'll be going into getting started with form building. So if you're an individual who has been building forms for a while but would like a quick recap, please definitely attend that session. As well as anyone who's brand new, this is a great session for you to become more familiar with the form building interface and how to successfully follow best practices and build your forms. And then the next session, or the session that we have in November, is what can I do with the APIs? So APIs are extremely powerful, and during this session you'll learn why they're so powerful, as well as some tips and tools to how to get started with them. Before I hand it over to John and we start this presentation, we do have a couple quick polls for you. So if you don't mind just taking a minute and answering this first one. This is going to allow us to learn from you if you're a current user and what type of user you are. This is always good for John and I to then know when we're answering questions, as well as gauging who our audience is for the day. So John, the majority of the audience members have responded, and it looks like 100% of them currently are iFormBuilder users.
All right, awesome.
I have 2 more polls that I'm going to launch here, so bear with me for another minute. So if all of those individuals could now fill out this next poll. So do you currently use iFormBuilder in the map and graph views or PDF reports? So far it's a big spectrum here. We have people who use both and then people who use neither. All right, it looks like almost everyone has responded here. And so with that, I'm going to launch one more poll. I'm keeping everyone busy right now. Oops. Let's go ahead. And the last one I'm going to launch for now is about if you currently use other reporting and document generation software. And so if you could go ahead and answer this as well, then that'll help us along. Once we get a couple more responses, I'll go ahead and show those responses to you, John, and then I'll hand it over.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to close that poll, and then here are the responses. So about 50% use both, 25 use only reporting, and 25 do neither.
Very cool. Thanks, Barrett.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Like Barrett said, my name is Jonathan Su, and I will be presenting this webinar today. We're going to be talking about specifically improving your decision-making, visualization, and efficiency. The way we're going to be doing that is by talking through two of the services that we offer here at Zerion. It's going to be talking through Zerion Reports as well as Zerion Documents. Now, in order to make sure this webinar is successful, it's really important that we start off by doing a little bit of an introduction about what each one of those two services is. We'll do a high-level overview of the types of capabilities each one has, as well as what should be expected and when you would use one or the other. After that, I have a small demo that I built out for everybody, and we're going to go through that. And then through that demo, we're going to have a discussion around how you can improve your decision-making, your visualizations, as well as your efficiency. So to start things off, let's talk about what reports and documents are. Each one of them is going to support a different facet of your data collection and data management process. Zerion Reports is going to be all about dashboards. And so what happens here is your end goal is going to be to create a dashboard that should function in real time. That dashboard is going to be made up of tables and charts, and it will allow you to analyze your data as a whole set. This is different than documents. In Zerion Documents, what you're going to be doing is following a workflow where as the user completes records on their device, those records are going to be then sent to a document template. That template is going to use the record data, it'll apply it into that formatted template, and it can then be distributed, whether you're going to email the document out or you can upload it to cloud storage. There's a variety of other delivery mechanisms you can use as well, and we're going to talk about those later on in the webinar. But it's really important to understand the key distinction here, where Zerion Reports, which focuses on dashboards, is going to look at your data set as a whole. I like to think of this as a living document, where as records are modified or added, they are included into your reports tables. Zerion Reports is also very similar to, in terms of functionality, something along the lines of Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets or any sort of spreadsheeting software you may have used in the past. Again, the entire purpose here is to do analytics and to look at your data set in its entirety. Then we have Zerion Documents, and the purpose here is on a per record basis. You want to generate some sort of a document, whether that's going to be a PDF, an HTML file, a Word document, or an Excel spreadsheet. But it's on a per record basis. Once that document is generated, then it's not going to change unless a new version is generated thereafter. So let's go into the capabilities of each one a little bit deeper. We're going to start with Zerion Reports, and the first thing I want to make note of is in the lower left corner you'll see the logo for Zoho. The reason being is that Zerion Reports is actually, we've partnered with Zoho and we're using their reporting tool. We've found that this has been really beneficial for our customers and for people who are using reports, because not only do they get the knowledge base that we have in terms of data collection and data management, but they also get the Zoho community's knowledge as well when it comes to reporting and visualizing your data. So inside of Zerion Reports, I like to break this down to three different groupings in terms of your capabilities and your functionalities. The first thing is, as you get data into Zerion Reports, you're going to be able to apply formulas and aggregates to your data. So the data processing does not end when it gets to reports. In fact, sometimes that's actually the beginning. That's where you start doing some of the analysis. You're able to do formulas based on multiple columns, and you're also able to calculate aggregate values based on the table as a whole. Now, once you have all the data that you want, you're then going to organize that data into a variety of different tables. This could be a pivot chart, it could be a query table where you are restricting the columns and or the rows that you're getting, or it could be a summary chart, and these are all just going to be different ways to visualize your data and to see them in the way that you want to in order to make better decisions. If a table is not going to be sufficient, then you are able to also take that data and visualize it in terms of a chart or a graph. Zerion Reports is going to allow you to use your standard graphs such as bar graphs or pie charts, as well as scatter plots. There are a variety of different charts and graphs that are being released, and that's again one of the nice things about the partnership we have with Zoho, is as their development team continues to work on introducing new features, we gain the benefit of that. Once you have your tables completed, once you have your charts and your graphs configured, you're going to eventually compile all of those different views into a dashboard. And so think of your dashboard as a one-stop shop for looking at all the different data that you want to analyze. Now your dashboard is going to be able to be distributed as well. From that dashboard, you're able to do things like email a snapshot of the dashboard to a single email address or to a set of email addresses. Moreover, you're able to take that email and schedule it. So it may be recurring on a monthly, a weekly basis. That's up to you. You can also distribute that dashboard through private and public links. So you can be required to have a Zerion login in order to view the dashboard if your data is sensitive. Or if you want the data to be a little bit more public, a little bit easier to access, you can create a public permalink that when distributed, anybody will be able to view, regardless if they're logged in or not. And then the last way we see dashboards distributed is by embedding them into HTML pages. And all three of these ways of viewing your data are going to be native inside of Zerion Reports. Moving on to documents, I'm going to break this up in a similar fashion with three different groupings. Now, when you work inside of Zerion Documents, what's really cool is you're going to be eliminating the transposition of data. So what that means is after you've gone through that process of collecting all your data, you don't need to worry about taking those values and either manually typing them into a document or copy and pasting them. Because you have the template generated and you can create the connection from data collector into documents, you're going to be able to have a seamless integration there from one to the other. What that's going to enable you to do is maximize the accuracy of your document generation as well as the reliability of it. You're not going to have to worry about mistyping a value or having a document sent out that you then need to pull back and retract. Which also brings me to this third point where documents are delivered instantly. Not only will you be able to create and generate the document automatically, it will then be distributed to whichever delivery mechanisms you have established as soon as that generation happens. Now, in terms of the document template itself, you have two options here. You can build a template from an existing document, and we see a lot of companies be very successful with this. Most groups already have some sort of a PDF or a Word document that they're already using in a manual fashion. You're able to take this document as a skeleton and then add in your template fields, or what are called merge fields, where you want record values to be placed into. After all that happens, then your document template is going to be able to be used in a repeated fashion. Your other option is to build an HTML document from scratch. So if you don't have a document that's already been made, what you can do is go into the built-in editor, create an HTML document, again adding in your merge fields, and then from there you have a customized template with the flexibility of HTML, and that's going to allow you to create brand new templates relatively easily. Expanding on the idea of your document template, you're also going to be able to conditionally show and hide content. This is one of the things that we see used quite frequently, where you may have certain sections of a document you only want to show based on certain conditions. You may also have sections that you want to repeat based on certain conditions. And so that's going to allow you to do those things inside of documents where you can have table rows repeat, for example, on the basis of the number of subform records you have, or you could have sections repeat based on a certain value within a field. So now that we've gone and looked at the characteristics and the qualities of each one of the two services, Zerion Reports and Zerion Documents, before I actually get into the slide where I want to go into the decision-making aspect of the two, let me go ahead and jump over here to my device and show you very briefly what I have prepared. So I have a real quick form here. It's just a PC inspection form. And I built this form specifically for this webinar, so it's not going to be like a full-fledged inspection form, but you'll see it has two fields at the top for a name and email. You can choose whether this is the first time the PC has been inspected or if it's a repeat inspection. And then it's just going to be a series of questions regarding the actual condition of the computer itself. So we can go ahead and fill this out quickly, press done, and we'll sync my device. Now, while that's syncing, let me go ahead and pull up my dashboard. And before we get into that, I'll actually go into this table here, as well as my document template. So I just want to get all of my different components together. Now the record we just submitted, I'm going to refresh this table. And at the bottom, what you'll see is I have this row here. The time is, this is the current timestamp right now, and this is the information that I added in. So you'll see these are the fields that I filled in with the different portions of the inspection. I also have added formula fields where I'm doing a count of the number of yes values as well as the number of no values, and then an overall percentage for the inspection. So these are all done natively inside of Zerion Reports. From here, I'm able to create a variety. In this case, I just did a series of pie charts to see the distribution between pass and fail for each of the inspection points. And ultimately, this is all assembled into a dashboard where I'm able to look at the entire data. Now on the document side, what I have here is a real quick Word document. You'll see I have a custom image up here at the top, and I have my base template. Inside the template, I have what are called merge fields, and you can tell they're merge fields because of the curly braces as well as the $sign. These are placeholders for record values that when submitted are going to take the place, or they're going to be swapped in and out of where the merge fields exist. I also have some sections with some conditional information, and I'm going to be talking through this a little bit later. And then down here, you'll just see there's a real quick report asking each question. And again, as I fill out one record, the expectation is that one document is generated. Whereas if I go back over to reports, as I fill out one record, the expectation is that record is added to my data set at the bottom. So I'm still continuing to look at the data as a whole. Now the next thing I want to do is jump over here real quickly to my email. And you'll see this is the document that I had just filled out, and it was delivered to me while I synced my device. You'll see that the different fields were added in where I have the placeholders set up. And again, this template can be customized any way you want. We have a lot of templates which use tables, and we see a lot of groups use this as a way of upgrading from the native reporting functionalities inside of iFormBuilder. You're able to kind of go above and beyond that base PDF report that you see generated per record when you submit them inside of iFormBuilder, and now you can truly customize documents. So now let's focus in our discussion on the goal of improving decision making. There's two main ways I see Zerion Reports and Zerion Documents being able to improve your decision making process from the perspective of being a business owner or a business manager overseeing the data collection process. The first thing is, as you noticed during the demo, as soon as I synced a record, it was automatically added to a reports table. Now this is distinctly different than traditional processes we see where organizations will collect data for a period of time, download those records as an Excel feed, and then upload them to another reporting software, or just do the analysis inside of Excel itself. By having the records synced automatically, any sort of analysis you have that are based on those records will have the most up-to-date data possible. And that's going to improve your decision-making capabilities because you have real-time data sync. The second way you're able to improve your decision-making is from the data that you've collected, you're able to then in reports generate analytics that are going to be able to be reimagined as metrics, key performance indicators. In the situation of the demo that I had built out, you're able to look at each of the different inspection points and see which ones are more likely to be a fail, which ones are more commonly not failing and are passing. And that's going to allow you to focus in on where you may need to improve training or where you may need to improve your processes to make sure that those areas don't fail. Now, before I jump into visualizing data, Barrett, I did want to check in real quickly to see if there have been any questions that have been asked or if there's anything that I can clarify.
So far, I've been able to answer the questions that have come in. I think right now people are feeling pretty good with what you've gone through.
Awesome, very cool. So now as we focus and we transition into visualizing your data, this is going to really be around the idea and the concept that as you collect a large amount of data, you're going to need to be able to kind of focus in on what you want to look at. So the first way we're going to see how Reports is able to improve the visualization of data is that when you create these dashboards, you're able to apply filters which are going to provide focus to the data that you're viewing. So let me show everybody what this looks like real quickly. If I come back over here to my dashboard, and as this loads, what you'll see is at the top, I have set up a series of filters here. And what happens is from the data that's going to be shown below, if it comes up, let me reload this page real quickly. Here we go. So what'll happen is this data can be filtered. So maybe I only want to see records that were submitted today, or maybe I want to see records that are only a first inspection or a repeat inspection. If you remember, that was a select element on our form. So I could look at repeat inspections only, and you'll see the data updates based on these criteria. So this is going to allow you to give focus to what you really want to see. It's not just going to be your entire data set and you have to sift through it. By using these filters, you're able to get a very precise and accurate view of what you want to analyze. I'm able to also search by name, for example, if I want to look at a history of one person. I can see what that person in this scenario is doing wrong with their computer. Now, the other way you're able to better visualize your data is just the fact that these views are going to be able to be distributed. So I had mentioned this earlier, and I'm going to walk through the different possibilities that you have available, but these dashboards you create are able to be viewed, whether it's privately or publicly. You can view them through a web page, or you can also set up an email that can be scheduled in addition to the previous ways of sending out your dashboard. So I'm going to go back over to my dashboard here. And on the right-hand side, there are 4 options here to export, email, share, and publish my dashboard. Now, if I want to export the dashboard, you see I can export an HTML version as well as a PDF version. And this is going to allow me to create that snapshot of what I've displayed here so far. And that can be useful for a couple of things. That can be useful for archiving a certain view that you may want to keep. You can also use this to take that snapshot and send it to somebody. Now, in the latter scenario where you want to send a snapshot to somebody, I would actually recommend not doing it through export, even though you can, because there is an automated way to send emails to users. So here again, I can choose the output format if I want to email it as an HTML file, or if I want to email it as a PDF. From here, if I choose to do this, you'll see that you can select email addresses to send this dashboard to. You can set the subject as well as a message, so you get a nice level of customizability. And then you can also choose to schedule this email. And so from here, I can say, hey, I want this email to be scheduled weekly, so I get a weekly snapshot of all my inspections. What day do I want it to repeat on? And at what time? So you get very granular configuration, which is possible using this. I'm going to go ahead and save this very quickly. The next way you're able to distribute your dashboard is by sharing it. And so in this view, you're able to share it to new users, to groups. You can make this view public. For example, if I choose this, you'll see that I'm going to allow users to actually get into this dashboard. They may only have read access. You may allow them, if you want, to export the data, view the underlying data, or be able to drill down. You're going to get this public link, which will be made available, and then you can share that link with whoever you'd like, and they'll have access to see the dashboard. And the final method for distributing your dashboard is by publishing it. Now you are able to set up a permalink. This is the first one I'm going to go through. Inside of a permalink, you have the choice whether you want to have requirements for access with login, or if you want them to be able to access it without a login. What I'm going to do is choose without a login. I'm going to generate this random key. I'm going to choose my auto refresh. And I'm going to, after I copy this, close it. And actually what I'm able to do is, let me in the chat, paste this URL to everybody, and you should be able to view that in your own browser if you would like. Now the final way I'm going to talk about distributing your dashboard and increasing the visualization here is the ability to embed it inside of a website or a blog. In order to demonstrate this, I'm actually going to go to our homepage, and we have a demo dashboard that is centered around residential building inspection. This has a lot of the same elements you saw in what I created, except this one is a little bit more mature. You'll see that I can do filters based on the inspection date. So if I want to say just today, we'll see if anything's been done today. It looks like the answer is no. If I set this back a little bit, we can check for this time frame, and you'll see that there are some inspections done during this time frame. I can further refine this based on state. Looks like nothing is from New York. We'll try Virginia. We got some records. And then I can continue to filter my records down as I want. Now the nice thing about embedding this into a web page like this is you can actually then password protect the web page, whether you want to include the web page on an intranet so that it's not accessible externally, or if you want to put this web page somewhere that's more outward facing like we have it on our home page, you can do that as well without exposing the link itself. Now finally, the third way we're able to improve the visualization of our data is just the fact that we're able to customize our document templates to match the style of your organization. I touched on this very briefly, and I want to hold a little bit longer of a discussion around this. But inside of your document templates, you have the full customization of working inside of Microsoft Word to create document templates that are as complex or as closely related to your style guide as you want. If you've worked with the PDF documents that are generated or PDF reports that are generated in iFormBuilder, you're able to do some customizations to the color and some of the styling, but you don't really have control over the layout. Inside of working with Word or even working with Excel or fillable PDFs though, you now have a full palette of options in terms of how you want to customize your documents. You can put images wherever you would like. You're able to have a full range of different fonts available to you, as well as different table structures that you can loop through using the web merge code. Now what I want to do in this scenario is go through this document template in a little bit more detail, and I can talk through some of the basics here so that for anyone who may be interested in this, if you decide to try it out, you'll be able to get a head start on everyone else. So I'll start off here on this line which says customer name, and let me zoom in a bit actually. So what I have here is what's called a merge field, and this is just going to be a placeholder or a wildcard character set where whenever I have record data, I'm going to be doing what's called a mapping, where I have a property or a value inside of my record from my data, and it maps to this merge field. What that means is the value that's been collected in that form element will then be shown on this merge field. So I have a merge field here called full name. I know that this is a merge field because it begins with a $sign inside of the curly braces. This is another merge field called email. Now if I move down here to inspection, if you remember from our form, we had two types of inspections, an initial first inspection or a repeat inspection. What I have here is an example of an if statement. This is a conditional expression inside of web merge. And so now you'll see there's no $sign at the beginning. That's because if is a command, it's not a merge field. what I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see if the merge field first_inspection is equal to, using double equal signs, the value first inspection. So if this is true, then I'm going to print the word first. Otherwise, I'm going to print the word repeat, and I'm going to close or end my if statement. So again, based on the value of this merge field, I'm going to print one of two different values. As I scroll down here, you'll see I have a series of individual merge fields, and if we recall back to the document that I created, the values are going to just be swapped in and out of where the merge fields exist. And again, this is going to give you supreme flexibility over where you want the values to show up. One of the other things that's really nice about this is I was able to just manually type in these headings instead of having to grab the label value from my form and put them into this document. I'm able to get an even deeper level of customization where I'm able to have a label on the form that is going to be optimized for the data collector. And then inside of my document template, I'm able to create labeled text here that is going to be optimized for the actual document that's generated. Barrett, I want to do a quick check-in one more time to see if there are any questions I can answer.
Sure. So there's been some questions about how people would access Zerion reports or Zerion documents, as well as if it's an additional cost. So if you don't mind clarifying how subscription works, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, I think that would be very helpful, actually. So what we'll do is we'll back up all the way to the beginning of this webinar to the very first poll question that was asked, which was if you were a current customer. And there were two options for yes. The first option was yes, you're a Zerion customer. The second was yes, iFormBuilder only. So for those of us who are iFormBuilder customers, and I believe if I remember correctly, the poll results was that everyone was an iFormBuilder customer, you have access to that one set of software, iFormBuilder for data collection. Now what we've done in the last year is we've rolled out a more comprehensive offering of software solutions, which we call Zerion Web Services. That's going to encompass what's called Data Collector, which is the iFormBuilder version inside of Zerion Web Services. So we have Data Collector, we have Zerion Reports, Zerion Documents, and then there is a central cog, a middle piece that is going to facilitate integrations between the other three called Data Flow Automation. So what happens is your users inside of iFormBuilder are not going to be the same as your users inside of Data Collector or inside of Zerion Web Services. But the model looks very similar where there's going to be a per user subscription basis. And so as you subscribe users to Zerion Web Services, you would have access to an increasing number of document templates per month. You'd also have an increasing number of reports, tables, or rows that you're allowed to have per month in addition.
So one thing I just want to add to that is you did mention that within Zerion Web Services, there is a tool called Data Collector. Because you are iFormBuilder accounts currently, or most everyone has an iFormBuilder account, there are two options. Either we migrate your iFormBuilder account into Zerion Web Services, or we have a plan called Zerion Connect, which allows you to keep your iFormBuilder account and then connect your iFormBuilder account to Zerion Web Services so that you can continue to use both platforms.
Yeah, and that Zerion Connect option is really nice in terms of being able to take the benefits or the kind of the best of both worlds. You're not going to have to do any sort of migration for your current iFormBuilder data collection projects, but you will get the capability of using Zerion Reports as well as Zerion Documents. Bear, are there any other questions I'd be able to answer?
No, that's about it for now. Thank you.
All right. So let's now talk about this third, kind of the third facet of this webinar, and let's talk about how we can become more efficient through using Zerion Reports and through using Zerion Documents. And I have two ways for increasing your efficiency, one per service. We're going to start with Zerion Documents. And inside of Zerion Documents, you're able to have these generated documents be distributed automatically, which is really, really helpful. So in order to show you this, what I wanted to do was take you through the the delivery interface inside of Zerion Documents. So let me go ahead and refresh this. I'm going to search for my document template. And inside of here, you'll see there's a delivery tab. And this is where you can set up all the deliveries that you want for this document each time it's generated. Now, currently what I have here is a single delivery. It's going to be an email type. If I go into edit to look at the configuration, you can see I want to send this email to myself. Now, if you want, you can make this a merge field, so you could send it to for example, the email of the person who filled out the inspection. But what I want to do for the purposes of this webinar is just keep it to a static email address. I can do the same thing with who I'm sending it from. So if you imagine you have multiple inspectors, you may want to choose their iFormBuilder.email as this merge field so that it will come from that actual inspector themselves rather than a generic email address. The subject line of the email as well as the message are also going to be able to be customized, and you do have a variety of other options here, such as always sending the email, including things like a CC or a BCC, and then even delaying the delivery, which can be useful as well. Now I'm going to click over here to New Delivery because this is going to show us a list of all the different destinations that are available for you when you generate a document. So I've currently taken advantage of the email delivery, and I always use this for demo purposes because it's very easy to open up my email inbox to show the document that's been created. But you are able to send to a variety of really popular destinations. For example, you could have it stored in a Dropbox account, a Box account, or an Amazon S3 container. Some other cloud storage options include Google Drive, and if you want to have your document printed, you could have it, whoops, scroll up. You could use Google Cloud Printing. Another common one is to have that document be sent and stored into Salesforce or SharePoint. And so these are all going to be options available to you. You also do have the ability to do some e-signing with that document. So if you want to send it using either e-sign or Adobe Sign, that's going to allow you to have that document sent out to be signed and then returned. Now, the way we're going to be able to improve efficiency through the lens of Zerion Reports is that you're able to create this environment where you have full data synchronization inside of both Zerion, or inside of both Data Collector or iFormBuilder, again, those two being synonymous, and Zerion Reports. What that means is you're able to set up a relationship where any changes made to your iFormBuilder data, for example, are going to be reflected in reports. Now that means three things. One, if you add a new record, that's going to show up in your Zerion Reports table. The second thing is if you take a record and say there is a mistake on it, you reassign it to the field inspector, they resubmit that record, that update that happens in iFormBuilder will also happen inside of Zerion Reports. So your data maintains its integrity in both platforms. You don't have to worry about manually changing your data in your reporting tool. Like if you downloaded a set of data in Excel, you'd then have to clean it manually inside of Excel if you find mistakes. And then the third implication is that in the event you delete a record in iFormBuilder, you're able to create that relationship where that record would also be deleted inside of Zerion Reports. Now this third scenario can sometimes be a little bit hard to imagine a use case for, so I have one prepared for you. In the event you have survey data that you've been collecting, and maybe you have a duplicate entry, or you have a record that you realize is now invalid, and you want to delete that record, you would want that deletion to show up in reports as well, because quite frequently what we see in those scenarios is a lot of the calculations are percentage based. And in the event they're percentage based, the number of rows you have in your table is going to be very important to that calculation. So you don't want to have data that doesn't exist anymore in iFormBuilder, but you still have a remnant of it inside of Zerion Reports. or inside of Excel or whatever spreadsheeting software you're using. This ability to maintain data synchronization is extremely critical because what it means is you will never have to change your data inside of your reporting platform. All changes can and should actually be made inside of iFormBuilder, what we call the point of origin. So that's going to be the very beginning of your data. And by making changes inside of iFormBuilder, it's going to, it'll transfer all the way through your workflow into reports and then into the views you created in reports and ultimately the dashboards that you're going to distribute. So I can show you a real quick example of this. Let me go ahead and refresh my login for my iFormBuilder account. I'm going to switch my profile to my webinar profile. And inside of here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the records I have for my PC inspection form. And we'll see I have a record that I just created today during this webinar with the ID of 207, and I also have one with an ID of 204. What I want to do is delete the 204 ID from this table. And as that deletion happens, I'm now going to go over here to my reports table. And I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to see that I don't have that row in here anymore either. So that row was also deleted from Zerion Reports. I can show this behavior one more time. Let's go ahead and delete record 105. So I'm going to go ahead and as this loads up, select 105, delete selected. And over here, you'll see that this record exists currently. Let me double check to make sure the deletion is completed. Inside of reports, if I refresh this view, scroll on down, you'll see 105 is no longer here as well. And so what's great about this is I'm not making any changes to the actual data here. I'm not going in and saying, I want to delete this one row. You don't need to do that because you can do it at the point of origin. And that's going to make sure that the data that you keep inside of iFormBuilder is going to exactly mimic and mirror what you have in your reporting platform. Again, this is going to go back to that idea of improving your efficiency because you only have to make changes in one location. You don't need to worry about maintaining two sets of data anymore as well. So your overall workflow will be much more efficient. It should be much leaner and a lot more clean. Now, Barrett, I'm going to do a one more check-in real quickly to see if there are any questions I'd be able to answer or if there's anything that you'd want to add.
No, I think for the most part, the questions have been good and I've answered them. I think, because we have a lot of iFormBuilder users on the call, it's hard for everyone to kind of see the full potential. So as many examples as you have and you want to share is always helpful.
Sure. So what I can do is I can talk through a couple of examples that I've built out in the past for different customers. One that comes to mind is I built out a summary form where as they collected data for in this scenario, it was an ecology survey inside of a forest environment. As they collected the data, what used to happen was they would take in their data that was collected and they would have to summarize it by categorizing as well as sorting through each of the different species that they had collected data on. What I was able to do was create a workflow where they were able to have that document generated automatically. So one, they're not going back and cleaning their data afterwards manually. Two, the summary happens instantly, so they don't have to worry about doing a manual sort. And then the third thing is that it was sent, distributed, and stored automatically, so they didn't have to worry about losing that record as well. Another example of a group that we've worked with in the past is we've had them take their survey of information. In this scenario, it was a health organization. And in their survey, what they did was they sent all of that data over into reports. They were able to set up that data synchronization where their iFormBuilder data was fully mirrored over in reports. They took those records created additional views on top of it. And in fact, a lot of those different views had calculations and different aggregates to calculate percentages off of the data. And those percentages then informed metrics that they had established before the survey started to determine if their interventions were being successful or not. They called those indicators. And so if an indicator was above a certain threshold, they made the conclusion that it was being effective. If it was below that threshold, then they saw it as something that needed additional attention or potentially revision. I hope those two examples are helpful in terms of helping bridge the gap from concept to actual implementation. I know that can be really difficult, especially if you are new to this. But the other thing I'd like everyone to try to do is to think about their current workflows as they are now, and think about what types of needs you have in terms of expanding your workflow or refining your workflow to make it more efficient or of a higher quality level. And there's a good chance that moving over and using Zerion Reports and or Zerion Documents is going to facilitate that process. Now, Barrett, in line with that, I do have a fourth poll prepared for everybody. If you wanted to go ahead and launch that real quickly, I'd appreciate it.
Sorry, I muted myself. Yep, the poll has now been launched.
Awesome.
So there was a question that came up while you were going through some of those examples, and one of them was, can you build your own document in Access rather than in Word?
Sure. So if you're building the document in Access, as long as you can export it as a Word file, you're able to use that template. The formats that are allowed for a document template are an Excel workbook, so you have an XLS file. You can use a Word document, so you'd have a doc file, a HTML file, or a fillable PDF. Those are going to be the four, I guess, mediums, if you want to call them, or file types that are allowed as a document template. Now, one of the other things I do want to note is that, say you upload a Word document as your template, you're then able to generate that document not only as a Word document itself, so keeping the file type the same, but you're also able to have an option of making it a PDF instead if you don't want it to be editable, or as an image if you'd like to store it that way as well.
Great, and I know that you talked before about how you can do use the inline document builder too.
Yes.
All right, so it looks like most everyone has responded to the poll. So if you want to take a quick look here are our results. So I think that looks pretty good. The majority of everyone does see the use case for both softwares.
That's awesome. And I do want to say that if any of you all are interested in learning more about this after the webinar, just feel free to contact myself or Barrett, and we'll get you in touch with we'll either answer the questions directly actually, or if there's someone that we need to get you in touch with, we'll be sure to make that connection happen. Barrett, any other questions?
Nope, the only thing I was going to say is I am putting the pricing for Zerion within the chat section. This can change based off of your need, and so if you, once you're looking at the pricing, if you're not 100% sure what you'd get, then we definitely can have you talk to one of our sales team members and talk through the price itself.
Awesome, that's really helpful. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping up this webinar. I do want to make sure that everyone is aware that beyond the scope of this webinar, we are here for you. There's a lot of different ways for you to interact with us as a company, as well as also people who are involved in your same data efforts. So some of the 5 ways that we like to highlight here in terms of ways you can join in and be part of the discussion. I always recommend using our Customer Success Center for looking up articles and documentation on how to do certain steps within each of the software platforms. Additionally, we do have our community forums, and we are making a concerted effort to kind of revamp the community and try to increase the traffic there and bring added value to people for participating inside of it. So definitely be on the lookout for updates to the community. We're also constantly publishing blog articles on a variety of different topics, and that's a really great way to see what's happening inside the company as well as where we are focusing our efforts, and also to increase your knowledge around certain industries. And then the last two at the bottom are certifications and webinars. As Barrett stated at the very beginning of this webinar, we are finished with certifications for the remainder of 2017, but they will be starting up again early 2018. And we do have a series of webinars to close out the year. The next one is actually going to be next week on Tuesday, where I talk about 3 forms that every company should be using. And so this is going to be 3 samplings of forms that we've seen effectively used by groups that model things you see, regardless of your industry or regardless of your organization, in a paper and pencil format. We found ways to do that digitally, and it provides value beyond your actual data collection project for the organization. To close things out, I do want to make sure that everyone is aware within the next 48 hours, you're going to be getting a couple of different things. You will have a feedback survey sent to you, which we would appreciate you filling out and giving us some feedback on. That really helps inform us in terms of how we can improve these webinars and make them more meaningful for everybody. You'll also be receiving an email with a recording of this webinar, as well as the materials that I've provided. I'm going to be sending and including the document template, the form package, as well as a link to the dashboard itself. And then finally, if you don't already have a user inside of Zerion Academy, one will be made for you, because we're keeping an archive of all of our different webinars in there. And so if you see an email pop up about Zerion Academy, it's because you didn't have a user existing already, and we've made one for you. So go ahead and log in and check that out as well. Barrett, I want to check in one final time to see if there are any questions I'd be able to answer before I close this out.
Nope, I think we've got everything. So thank you, John, for today's webinar. I think it was really helpful.
Thanks so much, and everybody have a good rest of the day. I'll see you next webinar.